I see Susan McCombs has her hand up. Hello. Oh, you're still on mute. There you go.
Yeah. Okay, wait, and lower hand. Hi. First, it was so delightful to hear how excited both of you were about these books. I mean, after all this time as authors and as editors, here Amy, you're like, I've got to get the book, and you have to stay and I have to share it with you. And I didn't think I was expecting a little bit of not jadedness, but a little calmness about it. And anyway, that was great. Just great to hear. So I'm wondering, as authors, what the challenges are for you when you're difference between writing for a fictional character and a non-fictional character, and which you find more challenging. I mean, the non-fictional character, right? It has the story, but then you're limited to that. And the fictional character doesn't have the story, but that might be a challenge for you. So both of you have done both, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like to have something to work with. That's just where I'm a really good adapter. I think I'm probably more of an adapter than an author. I like to start with something, and so I think that's why I've written a lot of books about people and nonfiction, and because there's a story there that, and I'm so fascinated by people's lives and the details, and love to work with, which details am I going to sort of pull to the surface and others maybe not focus on. So I love that for me, that's easier than coming up with something out of the clear blue sky. I find that, like, people that write pure fiction, I just have so much admiration for, because that totally overwhelms me. That said, writing about real people is very tricky, and it's gotten even trickier still. And the older I get, the more I don't know how many more books of these I will write. They're really hard, and there's a huge responsibility to get it right. And yeah, that's a big challenge. So it's a lot of work. Yeah. And it's nice to see you, Susan. It's been a long time.
So Amy and I are kind of similar, and it's been something, a part of our friendship, that we actually tend towards very similar topics. Like, if you look at our books, most of them are based, whether loosely or closely, they're based on a real figure. That person is usually a woman who's doing something unusual, or that people didn't think that woman would be able to do. I've tried that, fiction. Newt, for example, in The Umbrella Queen, is a completely fictional character, and there's no Newt exists in the world. But the world that she lives in, this village in Thailand where everybody does the same thing, they paint umbrellas. It's factual. So there's that underpinning there. And then way the other way are some of the princesses, for example. I mean, these were real people, and they are, some of them, very well documented people, and those books were written as nonfiction. And then there's been everything in between. So I think what I've found now, and what I'm gonna probably not stray too far from in the future, because it works so well for me, is doing historical fiction, where in my adult novel, this was a real character. I know some real aspects of what happened to her in her personal life. I know through research a lot about the world that she lived in. I know all of that as fact. But I am free to write about her as historical fiction, underscore the fiction. I'm free to write about her in a way that I think might portray emotional truths and worry less about the facts. And so I even have in my author's note the fact that I have moved her from one side of the Puget Sound to the other. I've conveniently erased some of her siblings, and to give me enough leeway to tell the emotional story that I want to tell.
And can I follow up with that just a little? Both of you then listed your you obviously did your research about what they wore, what she packed, right? The girl on the motorcycle, and what Elizabeth would have to, go through. So that was all real. And then you were able to portray a fictionalized, you Shirin, a fictionalized Elizabeth, and it was perfectly fine. I have edited for children's book publishers where the author has made up complete, been writing about something historical and then made up an ending, like the ending of World War II, where Germany was bombed, not Japan, sort of thing. And I just want to say, don't do that. They're like, don't do that. So there's historical fiction, right, allows you to do a lot of leeway. You have some leeway there, but not entirely so. You're still working within history, and there has to be. And then one more thing, I want to say, I got my tangled weave is I went to Book Passage Children's Book Conference. I saw Summer Laurie speak there. 10 years later, I got an internship at Tricycle Press because I said, I really liked what Summer had to say. I wonder if she's still there. And then this 40-year-old gets to be an intern. And then Natasha had submitted a book and it was in the slush pile, and I was in charge of the slush pile, and she tracked me down when I was speaking at that same book conference years later, and she told me about her sister Shirin, and I went to your Goose Bottoms opening and introduced myself to you, and that's how I met Amy. And then I started meeting all of you. So it is a small world.
Yeah, the very tangled web we weave.
Very. And so Summer, I thank you before, but I want to thank you again and again and again. Plus she was my mentor. Yeah, you were the one. You were
so wonderful to
me.
with.
It's like, Susan, shh, no, not now.
I miss conferences. Doesn't everyone miss getting together? I mean, this is wonderful, but there is something about that weird mix and the people that you do meet that you never thought you might. So let's all do this again in 2021. Any other questions? I don't think I see. Do I see hands? Oh, Nancy Tompkins.
Yes. So, Shirin, and this is also actually for both of you. Why you said that this latest book you decided that it just came to you in rhyme. Kind of tell me about why that was the case, and I don't know, just talk a little bit about how hard it is to do rhyme, or I'm not even really sure what I'm asking, but
Let me answer this.
Figure it out.
So as an editor and as a writing coach, and I often do presentations of and you kind of give advice, and the advice is always going to be, what applies best to most people most of the time. And so I'll often say to people, if you can avoid it at all, don't write in rhyme, right? It's not that kids don't like it. Kids love it. Kids love it. What it is that it's really hard to edit. And so as an editor, as an acquisitions editor, if you're not right on the money with your rhyme, and I have like one book slot to fill, and there's somebody else there with prose that's equally off, that it needs kind of like an equal amount of fixing. The prose fix is always invariably an easier fix for most editors. And so a lot of editors are quite hesitant to kind of like tinker around with rhyme. You unstitch one thing and the whole, Amy and I went through this a couple of times. We didn't have, or at least I don't remember it as being a lot to change. But there were, say, 3 instances where the cadence was a little off or the rhyme was a little off. To get those 3 instances right, you can't just fix that sentence. You can't just fix, you have to fix the whole verse, or you have to fix it. And then all of a sudden you have these rhymes in this stanza that are too close to the rhymes like 2 stanzas before. So which one are you gonna, it's very different. If you came to me with a piece of my prose and you said, Shirin, this sentence sounds awkward to me. This sentence sounds awkward to me. I can fix that for you in 5 minutes. Well, maybe not 5 minutes, but you know what I mean? It's much, much harder to do. So when it started coming to me, this book, I can't tell you why it came to me that way. All my books come this way, by the way. I literally hear a few sentences. And I don't usually write until I feel like I've heard enough from the beginning and enough from the end. And if I don't have anything in the middle, that doesn't worry me so much, as long as I kind of know how it's going to be bookended. Well, this book very inconveniently just kept coming in little snippets of, you know, of that voice, that particular voice, which has not been appreciated by all reviewers, by the way. The voice of this lady's maid telling her to get out of bed, like hiring her out of bed. And so when I said to Amy, it's coming in rhyme, so that's why I don't want to do it yet. I thought that if I left it alone, sooner or later, I would have the bandwidth to sit down with it and write it as prose, you know? I couldn't do it right then because I wasn't really paying so much conscious attention to it, but at some point I thought I'd come back and do that. But what happened instead was the rhyme just kept building, and the rhyme just kept building. And one day, she said, you know, after she'd got me to sketch it out and everything, she said, why don't you just throw it down on a piece of paper, we can look at it and discuss it. And so I did. I remember that we were supposed to meet on, say, Wednesday, and by Tuesday I hadn't written anything yet, and I thought, you really better get a crack on this because you're meeting her tomorrow. And I sat down and and it really felt like it was automatic writing, like all the verses had somehow worked themselves out to be in there when I wasn't really paying attention. I got them all down. I'm not saying that they were perfect. And the next day I spent polishing it, and then at the end of that day I took it to Amy, and she said, it actually looks good, let me think about it, and we went from there. So
great, thank you.
The problem now is that I've set a precedent, because Amy and I are doing 2 more books together in the same series, and every time that I'm now staring at the 3rd one going, but I don't write rhyme. How am I going to get this story out? So we'll see what happens. Might be like,
so, I guess my other question, and I guess it's for Amy, is what was it about Ruby's, I think it was Ruby's Wish, what was there one thing that made you see that this was going to be a great story? Was there any?
I just remember it evoking such a beautiful world in my head. I was there instantly, and I just was so transported by Shirin's language, and I just found it to be a beautiful story. And I've always been drawn to strong girl characters, and Ruby is definitely that. And I loved that about her. And I also just love the name Ruby. That certainly helped. So yeah, I just thought it was a fresh, lovely voice.
Mm-hmm.